Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. My name is Salvador Brigman. On the channel, we love to talk about crowdfunding, raising capital for new projects, for your passion, for new products that you're coming out with. And today, I'm actually answering a question that I received via Instagram. So I do actually check my Instagram, particularly more frequently recently. I've been flooded with emails recently. Tons of you guys are reaching out to me on social media, and I absolutely love that. So I'm actually going to be answering a viewer's question that I received via Instagram, and that has to do with setting up an entity before you actually go live with a Kickstarter or other form of crowdfunding campaign. We're getting into that in just a second. All right, brother, welcome back to this channel. And again, my name is Sal. And if you are a loyal viewer and been watching my videos, give me a thumbs up so that other people know that this is worth their time. So great question, right? And this actually question was sent in via Instagram by Yehuda Atzman. That's a very good, strong name, and I also hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I have a guy in my coaching program named John Russell, and that's like just a great, strong name. Like I feel like the guy should run for political office or something like that, right? With that kind of a name. So if you do want to send in a question, I will have it be flashed on the screen what my Instagram handle is. It's just crowdcrux.salvador.brigman, and you can actually send in a question, you can DM me, and I might use it on one of my videos. So Yehuda Atzman sent in this question. He says, hey Sal, if I want to start a Kickstarter campaign to sell a product, eventually build a brand, should I create a business entity? So first of all, this individual wants to set up a Kickstarter campaign, wants to raise money, probably get some validation as well, probably get some feedback from people who are using the product when they actually deliver this. Also, they're trying to set up a Kickstarter campaign, but not only that, not just like a one and done launch. And some of you guys are actually just trying to do that. You're trying to just launch a campaign, do it once, right? Maybe do a small production run. That's awesome. That's great. You're trying to raise like 10 or 20K. That's cool. But it sounds like this person is trying to actually set a foundation where they're trying to do multiple launches maybe in the future and grow a brand out of this. So by brand, maybe selling other products, maybe even exploring other revenue streams, doing services, right? There's so many different ways in which you can actually grow a brand, but this person wants to set up not only one Kickstarter campaign, but also likely multiple ones in the future. So they're asking, should they set up a business entity? So before I really get into the nuts and bolts of this, I do have to put on a disclaimer here, guys. So asterisk, big asterisk, right? Disclaimer, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice right now, I'm not giving tax advice or anything in that way. You should really consult a CPA and a lawyer when it comes to this. This is just kind of my own personal opinion, what I think. For those of you that are not familiar, and honestly, there are, I think, a lot of people that are trying to sell products online, but maybe they don't understand the business that goes behind that or the business chops. I do think that becoming a business owner is actually a lifelong pursuit, and you can't really just go and get like an MBA and consider yourself a business owner, right? You really need the real world experiences. You got to be in the trenches doing these things to become a business owner if you want that to be your career, and maybe launch even multiple businesses and not just be an entrepreneur, but be operating these businesses. So by business entity, that keyword, what do they mean? Typically what they mean, at least in the United States, and I'm just speaking to people that are in the United States too, because laws are very different from country to country. Typically what they mean is some kind of a legal entity. So that could be, for example, an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corporation, right? Kickstarter itself is a public benefit corporation. What they really mean is a legal document which they file with their state in order to set up what's called a business entity. Now, a business entity is separate from an individual. So for example, you could be an individual that owns a business entity. And what that does is it creates a certain legal separation between you and that business. And that's actually what really smart business owners will do when they operate many different businesses, so they can have legal protection, but also a certain degree of privacy. So the way that I like to think about things is I like to put things through systems and decision-making frameworks. I don't like to think a lot, okay? I like to think as little as possible, because that way I can focus on the things that I'm good at, right? So when it comes to this, I put it through the framework of a pro-con analysis, okay? So this is what I call like MBA style thinking. So when you have a very big problem, for example, you can't decide which way I should go, you should always pull out of your toolbox a decision-making framework. So in this case, I would recommend doing a pro-con analysis. So let's talk about some of the pros, right? When it comes to doing this, when it comes to setting up a business entity, the biggest pro that I see is having a certain degree of legal protection. So for example, if you're entering a very risky business area and you expect that maybe someone's going to sue you, or you have a backer who's going to be very, very unhappy, and they might decide to reach out and try to, get a refund, and maybe you're not willing to give refunds, so they might decide to try and sue you, right? These are different issues that occasionally will crop up in business is also depending on the category and the type of product which you have. So if you want to have a certain degree of legal protection, I would say that's a huge pro when it comes to setting up a business entity. Aside from legality, I would also say that there's a big pro when it comes to taxes and when it comes to the finances side of the equation. So when you have a business entity, for example, an LLC,
you also typically have a business bank account, which creates a separation between your personal expenses, your personal life income, and then business's revenue, and then business's expenses. So it makes it much cleaner bookkeeping when you're kind of operating that business. And in the long run, it does make sense to have difference between the business and yourself. For example, if you're also involving contractors at a certain point in time. The third benefit, or the biggest benefit that I see in my mind when you're setting up your business entity, would be probably having a certain degree of privacy. So for example, if you're setting up, let's just say, an LLC in the state of Florida, you could have a registered agent who's the actual mailing address of that business, or you could have your own business office, which is maybe separate from your home residence. So you can have also a certain degree of privacy. Like, you don't want to have like a crazy fan or something like that, or a crazy customer, show up at your house or something like that, right? This could be a way in which you have a certain degree of privacy, which I would say would be another benefit.
Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description.
So Yehuda actually went on to say, I'm concerned whether it's a waste of my time and or money for my first campaign. So again, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a tax or CPA. I'm not an attorney or any of these kinds of things. So I would consult a lawyer and I would consult a CPA when it comes to getting a verified answer to this. My thought process would be, first of all, let's go through a couple of the cons, and then we'll kind of wrap that up with kind of what my thought process would be. So a couple of the cons, as Yehuda kind of indicated, it's going to be a bit of work to actually set up that entity. And that work level is going to depend on where you are and where you're setting that up. So for example, when I was setting up business entities in Massachusetts, for me, it was a lot more burdensome and it costs more to do it there than in Florida, which is a very business-friendly state and also a very tax-friendly state to business owners. It's actually a breeze to set up an LLC here. So there is that consideration, I would say, as a con. In addition, you have to, again, set up likely a business bank account to really, experience the full benefits of having a business entity. And that business bank account, depending on which company you're using, whether that's like TD Bank or Chase or like a local company, it's going to also have certain reserve requirements that you need to have within that account to avoid a monthly fee typically. Now that goes beyond the scope of this video. There are certain ways to get around that, but that goes beyond the scope of this video. I would say the last major con that I can think of is just doing all of this legwork and then maybe deciding a couple of months, hey, I actually don't want to pursue this particular company or don't want to pursue this particular product line. So again, then you're kind of wasting that. You're thinking about that. I could probably get the product out faster and just determine whether or not I even want to do this business before I set up the actual corporate entity. A couple of other considerations would be whether this is a single member entity. So for example, a single member LLC, or is it multi-member? Are you going to be having investors at a certain point in time? Are you going to be having venture capitalists who are going to be injecting an infusion of cash once you actually do a successful Kickstarter campaign, or even before that? That's going to determine as well the type of entity which you set up, whether that's a C corporation that's based in Delaware, right? Very friendly laws when it comes to that, very familiar with a lot of security attorneys, or are you going to be setting up a single member LLC or multi-member LLC and selling units in that LLC at a certain point in time, where you're doing a WeFunder campaign and you can actually sell units in the LLC doing a WeFunder or an equity crowdfunding campaign. So I could see why anyone's wheels would be spinning, because there's just a lot of stuff to kind of keep in your mind to make that particular decision. So what I want to focus on first of all is this campaign that you're setting up really just about testing the product, right? And really just about testing the market. If that's the case, you should really then assess kind of a little bit of your appetite for risk. So if you're okay with having a little bit more appetite for risk, I do think that's okay to run this campaign without necessarily having an entity, though you are taking on those risks, which we mentioned earlier. You can set up a company as you go, but definitely one of the things I would recommend is really keeping track of all the expenses that go into getting this business up and running, because those expenses can be written off as startup costs. It can also be written off as costs of doing business. For example, hiring a coach like myself, investing investing in a program, buying a book. These are all expenses, right? When it comes to really educating yourself about this particular business which you're setting up, but also the business that you're going to be running, doing marketing costs, running ads. All of these are legitimate business costs. You consult your CPA about that, but that's going to decrease the amount of taxes that you're going to pay. If you end up raising those, for example, $250K, you have to be aware of the expenses that go into that. So at the end of the day, I think it really does come down to your appetite for risk. I do think that if you still are in the beginning stages, there is an argument for the fact that, hey, this is going to be a lot of effort to actually set this thing up. So maybe it's more worth my time to actually plow that into actually getting a real product out there, to getting it to a point where I can actually collect revenue and I can gauge demand. And from that point in time, decide, is this a business that I want to be in? Do I really want to take it seriously and grow from there and grow a larger brand? The final thing I will say is that I do think that it's kind of a learning experience as well, setting up different corporate entities, setting up business bank accounts. It's kind of like a cool thing as a business owner to learn how to do that. And if you plan to be in business for a long time, I do think it makes sense to go through that process, obviously. And there are easy ways to do this as well, using services like LegalZoom, which I will link up down below. There are other services as well that will help you with incorporation. I think it makes a lot of sense. So for example, when I was setting up an Airbnb business, which I have now running in Miami, I had to set up a new corporation, I had to set up a new, LLC, all that kind of stuff. And because I've done it before, it wasn't really that challenging or difficult for me to do. So think about what makes sense for you, your particular situation, and what your goals are at the end of the day. And if you want to talk about that, if you want to talk about your specific Kickstarter campaign, you want to talk about your goals as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and how to actually smash your goal when you're going live with this crowdfunding campaign, how to actually stand out, the things that you need to do to really make this one of the best investments of your time in your entire lifetime, that opens up a new doorway where you have a thriving business, setting the foundation for a strong brand. If you want to talk about that, you should definitely book an individual one-on-one intensive coaching call down below, and I'll include that link. But if nothing else, dive into some of the other videos, the free videos I got out there on this channel. I got tons of free content on my blog, crowdcrux.com, as well as on my podcast, the Crowdfunding Demystified Podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, published a version here on YouTube. Man, I am throwing content your way because this is honestly one of the best times, in my opinion, to do a campaign. And it's so easy nowadays. And there's so many different resources out there to help you along the path. Hope you enjoyed this video, man. And if you do want to shoot me a message on Instagram, again, that's crowdcrux.salvador.brigman. And I will be checking my DMs at least once a week. Right? I do get a lot of DMs, get a lot of emails from you guys. So I love that. And I will try to, do some more videos on this. And I do get an interesting question. So make sure you reach out, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, leave a comment down below showing some support, and I will see you next time.